We'll move on now and speak to Lord John Mann, the government advisor on anti-Semitism. John, thanks for joining us. If you'll indulge us for a second, I'm going to take us back 8 years when you were a Labour MP confronting the anti-Semite former London Mayor Ken Livingstone. Have a look at this.
Over the top, you Nazi apologist. You Nazi apologist, rewriting history, rewriting history, rewriting history. Go back and check what Hitler did. Go back and check what Hitler did. There's a book called Mein Kampf. You've obviously never heard of it, but in 1925. Yes, you've never read it. You're looking at that. You know, looking at that. What he did in 1932.
Well, that was an explosion of rage on your part, and I would imagine that your feelings in the wake of this shocking report about anti-Semitism in Britain, the explosion of anti-Semitism, I would imagine you're feeling pretty similar to what you were feeling back then when you confronted Ken Livingstone, if I may say so, very impressively.
Well, it's a tornado of anti-Semitism that's ripping through the country. That's not an exaggeration. And viewers need to bear in mind, these figures come from the Community Security Trust. They don't overstate the situation. They're very careful in never doing that. I'll give you an example. If there's 1,000 anti-Semitic tweets directed against a Jewish woman, that goes as one incident, not 1,000. So in some ways, this is an underestimate of the number of incidents, because they've always been very careful not to overstate to ensure there's credibility in ensuring security. And, you know, this organisation's been successful. Unlike France, which you cited earlier, no people have been murdered or seriously injured in our lifetime for being Jewish in our country, unlike in France, where that's happened repeatedly in recent years. And it's happened in Austria, and in Denmark, and in Belgium, and in Germany, and in the United States, and many other countries. So we've got some things right in this country. But what's going on is the bystanders have suddenly started to become activists, joining in the anti-Jewish hatred. And if I could just cite one example, I think it's the most shocking single example of this year, and that was the Soho Theatre last week, where I'd never even heard of the Soho Theatre, to be honest, but this theatre in London, a Jewish couple were targeted by the so-called performer on stage. And instead of the audience being bystanders, which was tend to happen in the past, and just ignore things and keep out of the way, they actually joined in the piling on this Jewish couple being abused purely because they were Jewish. Now, what on earth is happening to our country?
He appeared
when a Jewish couple go to the theatre in our capital city, and the audience joins in the racist abuse of them. And that, to me, while obviously that's a more extreme example by definition, it's an actual example, this is the real world last week. That's how serious it is, and I could cite other examples. What I'm seeing, not just more incidents, which there are, more since October the 7th, the 3 months last year after October the 7th through to December 31st, more anti-Semitic incidents than in any year in recorded history, just in less than 3 months. And those incidents, I mean, incidents is almost the wrong word. It's people who have been targeted, real people, including children, on the receiving end. Incidents is probably not the right word. It's technically accurate, but it sounds like it's something to do with statistics. No, real people, our fellow citizens, including children, being targeted because they're Jewish, and the kind of targeting going on, without question, has become more extreme. And that's saying something. More extreme, more dangerous, people under threat, purely because they happen to be Jewish.
Well, John, the victim of this comedian, his name is Paul Curry, an anti-Semite.
No call comedian.
Yeah, he wasn't very funny. I agree with that. He appeared on TalkTV last night. By the way, just before we have a little listen to that poor guy, pop fact, in its previous incarnation, the Soho Theatre was the Dean Street Synagogue. But let's have a little listen to the victim of this pro-Palestine comedian at the Soho Theatre.
I didn't feel very intimidated because I'm used to dealing with anti-Semitic bullies, to be honest. I don't know why he chose to put us at danger, because when you're on the stage and you're holding a mic and you're inciting an entire crowd against two members of the audience, that could get out of hand.
Well, it could have got
quickly.
very out of hand very quickly. I mean, imagine if somebody had grabbed you or there had been some physical confrontation.
I think it is very likely that if we had refused to leave the space, if we had lingered for over a minute,
right,
I think it would have come to physical violence.
I mean, that's utterly, utterly horrific that, like you said, he's had to go through that. And amazing that he said as well that, well, you know, I'm kind of used to this sort of treatment, but that did frighten me. It sort of shows how gritty and hardened a community Jews have had to become. I could probably lay out quite what has happened to lead up to this, frankly speaking. One being social media radicalising people, the other being this culture, essentially, of it's OK to attack and racially abuse people as long as you've apportioned them the position of being more privileged than you. And we live in a time now where there's a huge culture of envy and identity politics, and somehow, therefore, anti-Semitism is somehow rock and roll, trendy and OK. But if that is the diagnosis of what's happened, what needs to be the cure? Because I think there's a lot of hand-wringing and nobody wanting to do anything particularly decisive.
There needs to be consistency of approach and consequences for the racists. You know, anti-Semite, some of them take a badge of honour in that term. So I like to use the term racist because that's what they are. So there should be consequences for the racists. I give an example. In Birmingham University, a group of people who appear to be students, and I'm meeting Birmingham University Vice-Chancellor to clarify this, they appear to be students, campaigning.
John, sorry to interrupt. Can you stay where you are? We just